Single woman adopts quintuplet sisters overnight. Their jaw-dropping gift, 24 years later, will leave you in tears. Meet Annie Johan, the woman who's yes to quintuplets in a single life-changing moment. From lonely nights to heart-stopping surprises, her unbelievable journey will move your heart. But first, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? Let's see how far this incredible story reaches. Annie's childhood unfolded in the quiet embrace of South Carolina, where the Johan family's craftsman bungalow nestled beneath the towering peaks of the Continental Divide. Pine forests stretched in every direction, their needles glinting like emerald jewels in the summer sun, then softening into hushed, snow-laden sentinels when winter came. As the only child of Kevin and Marie, Annie wanted for nothing. Horseback riding lessons, piano recitals, even tropical getaways to Hawaii were all part of her privileged upbringing. But her parents made sure she understood privilege wasn't a free pass. It came with duty. Excel, work hard, give back. And Annie carried those words with her, sharp as the mountain air. By 18, she was gone off to Harvard, where she threw herself into the world of marketing with relentless focus. Nights blurred into dawn as she fine-tuned campaigns, juggled internships, and carved her name at the top of her class. The ink on her diploma was barely dry when she landed a job at a premier marketing agency, Michelle & Co. Talent, it seemed, couldn't be hidden. Within a year, struggling accounts bloomed under her touch, morphing into award-winning triumphs. Promotions came fast. Rival firms in Los Angeles and Boston took notice, dangling offers thick with zeros. But Annie, she was just getting started. Yet for all her success, the glittering skyline outside her office window offered no solace for the quiet ache in her heart. Promotions and accolades couldn't fill the empty nursery she had imagined a dozen times over. Romance flickered in fleeting dates. Polite conversations, pleasant enough, but never that electric spark, never the promise of forever. By 30, her life was a collection of almost. Almost engaged, almost in love, almost someone's wife. Almost, but never quiet. Back home in Carolina, her parents' hints grew less subtle. "We just want to see you happy," her mother would murmur, eyes lingering on family photos where grandchildren should have been. But Annie wouldn't bend. Then came 40, and with it, the uneasy whisper of time running out. Fertility treatments loomed like a clinical maze with no guarantee at the end. One night, bleary-eyed from scrolling through adoption websites, she paused. A thought bloomed, fierce and clear. If I can't carry a child, I can still hold one. If I can't give birth, I can still give a home. By dawn, she had enrolled in foster care training, a year of classes on trauma, child development, and midnight emergencies. It was grueling, but for the first time in years, hope felt tangible. Then came the paperwork, the waiting, the sudden certainty that her child was there, distance away, waiting for her too. She pictured a little one with dark, curious eyes, tiny hands clutching hers. But just weeks before her flight, the news struck like a door slamming shut. Adoption Center suspended the further process. No explanation, no timeline, just silence. The calendar pages turned, mocking her. Had she missed her chance? Would she ever cradle a child of her own? Few days passed by. To her surprise, the phone shattered the silence at midnight. Annie jolted awake, heart hammering against her ribs as she groped for the glowing screen. Midnight calls never brought good news. "Annie Johan?" The woman's voice was steady, professional. "This is Emma Watt from Times Square Child Services. We have an urgent situation. 5 newborn sisters who need a home tonight." A pause. The weight of those words hung between them. Normally, we'd never ask someone to take 5 infants at once, but these girls share more than DNA. They share a heartbeat. Separating them isn't an option. Annie's throat tightened. 5 babies, 40 years old, a life built for one. The social worker kept talking. Support systems, resources, emergency approvals. But all Annie heard was the thunder of her own pulse. Then, without conscious thought, the word escaped her lips. Yes. The morning air bit sharp with April frost when she arrived at the Times Square Child Services. Her breath came in visible puffs, her gloved fingers trembling, not from cold but from the weight of what waited inside. Through the fogged window, she saw them. 5 tiny bundles nestled side by side, their breaths rising and falling in quiet unison. Emma's key turned in the lock. Ready? The question hung between them. Annie wasn't, couldn't be, but she nodded. Inside, the world narrowed to 5 bassinets. Ivy, Claire, Daisy, Lillian, and Emily, Emma murmured. 2 weeks old today. Annie sank to her knees, Ivy all dark wisps of hair and fierce, blinking curiosity, clutched her blanket like a lifeline. Claire's rosebud mouth curled into a sleepy, dimpled grin. Daisy, swaddled in lavender, observed the world with the solemn focus of a scholar. Lillian's long lashes fluttered against peach-soft cheeks as if mid-dream. And Emily's miniature fingers closed around Annie's own with a grip that said, "You're ours now." The flight home passed in a haze of murmured lullabies and warm bottles, 5 heartbeats thrumming against Annie's chest in the specially configured bassinet. When wheels touched Carolina soil, half the neighborhood stood waiting, arms laden with casseroles, quilts, armfuls of pink and white peonies. But Annie's gaze flew past them to the figure silhouetted in the doorway. Marie, hands pressed to her mouth, shoulders shaking as she watched her daughter step forward, 5 sleeping miracles cradled like the most precious burden in the world. That first night, Annie rocked and rocked, the house humming with new life. Outside, the stars burned brighter. Or maybe it was just her eyes, wet with wonder, as she whispered into the dark, "Welcome home." Gradually, her sleek downtown loft had become a living lullaby. 5 cribs stood like pastel sentinels, mint green, blush pink, buttery yellow, soft lavender, sky blue, each cradling a tiny swaddled miracle. Her parents became permanent fixtures, assembling bouncers with military precision, while her father joked about turning the coffee table into a diaper stockpile. Pediatrician made house calls every Thursday. Exhaustion became her constant companion, but so did something else. A fierce, trembling joy that woke her before the babies did. Some mornings, standing in the milky dawn light, watching 5 chests rise and fall in perfect unison, Annie would press a hand to her mouth. They'd needed her. But she needed them more. The early days passed in a haze of warm milk and sleep-deprived miracles. Annie moved through the world in a perpetual state of wonder, one hand typing client emails, the other rocking a drowsy infant against her shoulder. Maria became their anchor, moving between cribs with the precision of a seasoned general, sterilizing bottles while humming old lullabies. Exhaustion lived in Annie's bones, but so did something new, a deep, humming joy that made even 3 a.m. feedings sacred. By their first birthday, rhythms emerged like well-loved melodies. Mornings began with the 5 of them tangled together in Annie's bed, a sunlit pile of giggles and sticky fingers. Friday nights meant blanket forts that swallowed the living room whole, Annie doing voices for storybook characters until tiny eyelids fluttered shut. Saturday smelled of lavender bubbles and echoed with squeals as rubber ducks raced across the tub. And Sundays, oh Sundays, were magic. Kevin would arrive at dawn to fire up the griddle, flipping pancakes shaped like animals, while Marie taught the girls to dip their toes in the lake, their laughter skipping across the water like stones. As the years unfolded, so did their personalities, bright and distinct as stained glass. Ivy left trails of crayon drawings everywhere, sketches of the mountains so vivid you could almost smell the pine needles. Claire turned every room into a stage, twirling in sequin leggings, demanding encores for her living room ballet performances. Daisy asked questions that stopped Annie mid-step. Why does the sky cry when it's sad? Do clouds have birthdays? Lillian spun tales of secret kingdoms only she could see, her small hands painting the air as she described castles made of starlight. Emily lined up stuffed animals in the hospital she made from shoeboxes, whispering, "Brave girl, just one more checkup," as she bandaged their plush paws. On the first day of preschool, Annie stood at the gate watching 5 backpacks bob away toward the red brick schoolhouse. The bakery across the street filled the crisp air with the scent of rising dough, mixing with the sound of their laughter as they disappeared into the whirl of other children. Annie lingered, fingers still warm from their last squeeze, the ghost of Claire's glitter on her palms, Ivy's mountain drawing folded in her pocket. The house would be too quiet without them. But oh, what a privilege to miss them. Mrs. Scarlett's notes always arrived like little love letters tucked into backpacks. Today, Ivy shared her snack with Claire without being asked. Or Lillian helped Emily sound out the word butterfly during reading time. The teacher's pen always lingered on the same observation. Their bond is extraordinary. Weekends became their sacred canvas. They'd spread checkered blankets by river shore, where skipping stones became a competitive sport. And Daisy's triumphant, "I got 6 bounces," would send the others scrambling to beat her record. Summers smelled of sunscreen and adventure as Annie's station wagon transformed into a 5-seater baby mobile carried them to unexplored places. Autumn brought many hikes to the nearby national parks, their pockets full of candies, while winter nights meant campfire and goofy stories as marshmallows turned gooey under Lillian's dramatic tales. Home was its own kind of magic. The living room became a lantern-lit cocoon under Grandma Marie's quilts with steaming mugs of cocoa for the gals. Of course, 5 hearts under one roof meant occasional fireworks. Bathroom mirror standoffs, "I need to braid my hair first." Heated debates over whose turn it was to pick the bedtime stories tested Annie's patience. But she'd gather them around the chipped kitchen table, the one with crayon marks hidden beneath placemats, and listen until every frustration found its air. She celebrated their victories like they were her own, front row at Claire's first ballet recital, cheering her, framing Ivy's blue ribbon watercolor of the Continental Divide, ugly crying when Lillian accepted her junior journalism award. At night, tucking them in, Annie would press kisses to 5 foreheads and whisper the same promise. However big the world feels tomorrow, remember you've got best friends for life right here. Time moved along rhythmically, as the quintuplets were blooming into different flowers, carrying their own uniqueness in same vase. The rose garden glowed under strands of golden lanterns, their light catching on the girls' matching graduation gowns as they stood by the fountain, their laughter mingling with the distant voices of farewell speech. Annie watched them, these 5 brilliant young women, and felt the weight of 18 years press against her ribs. That evening, Annie held a small celebration for the girls at home. Across the dinner table, "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice steady but soft. The girls turned, their faces bright with curiosity. "For 18 years you've called me Mom, but the truth is, I didn't give birth to you." The words hung in the air, delicate as the petals floating beside them. "I found you, all 5 of you, in a New York orphanage when you were just hours old. Sisters. A package deal." She smiled, though her eyes shone. "And I chose you. Every single day since, I've chosen you. That truth doesn't change a single thing about how much I love you." Silence. Then, Daisy's breath hitched. "We kind of knew," she whispered. Claire didn't hesitate. She crossed the space between them in 2 strides and wrapped Annie in a hug so tight it stole her breath. "You chose us," she said fiercely. "That's better than anything else." The others surged forward then, until Annie was enveloped in a tangle of arms and tearful laughter. Months later, the world stretched wide as they scattered to chase their dreams. Ivy rode off with full scholarship for arts to Boston University. Claire swept the studio floors with her moves in LA. Daisy pursued honors in biology at Harvard. Lillian took journaling career seriously. Emily soothing toddlers in a Stanford foster care program. But no matter how far they roamed, Sundays belonged to each other. Hours-long calls filled with overlapping stories and dramatic reenactments of roommate dramas. And every summer they'd pilgrimage home, tumbling through the front door in a whirl of sun-bleached hair and new inside jokes, the house vibrating with life again. Time passed by quickly. Autumn leaves blocked her walkway as she carried the groceries from the car to her doorstep, and to her surprise, 5 familiar voices shouted, "Surprise!" Inside, her living room had transformed. Claire stood triumphant beside a miniature globe, its axis tilted toward adventure. Daisy's blueprints cascaded across the coffee table, inked with bold designs. Lillian clutched a sheaf of legal papers like a winning hand, and there, center stage, a meticulous model of 3 storefronts, their tiny windows glowing with LED warmth. "Your dream," Daisy said, stepping forward. "1 grocery store in Carolina, 1 in New Orleans, 1 in Washington, fully funded." Her finger traced the miniature awning of Johan's pantry in tiny script. Lillian's documents rustled as she added, "Plus a little cottage, Lakeview, 6 guest rooms for all of us." She winked. Then Emily, ever the quiet architect of hearts, presented the final gift, a framed charter for the Annie Johan Foundation, its mission clear in embossed letters, "No foster siblings left behind." Claire's arms wrapped around her from behind, chin resting on Annie's shoulder. You turned 5 orphans into a family, she whispered. Now watch what that family can do. Years later, rocking by her lakeside fireplace, Annie would trace the path of that single midnight yes, how it spiraled outward like ripples from a thrown stone. The grocery stores nourished communities. The foundation reunited hundreds of siblings, and her daughters, they built empires of compassion, brick by brick, while still showing up every once a while. The autumn leaves still fall on those porch steps. The wind still rustles. And the world still learns through their story that the bravest thing a person can do is love without borders, to gather up strangers and call them home. Love comes like a hurricane. Its arrival can be anonymous, but when it comes, it stays forever. Love can even be a one call away. What would you do in such situation? Would you be able to raise a quintuplet? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more unbelievable real-life stories.